Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Garris, and this is the Transporter Room. It is our first live stream tonight, and we are talking Section 31. Tonight, I have with me Mark Zutkoff, Kenny, or Kirnjeet, I just can't say it, Kirnjeet, Rachel, TJ, Allison, and my live in Tokyo joining me tonight to review this episode, this movie, which, you know, there will be spoilers if you haven't seen it by now, but we got force. So we're going to just start off with tonight. We had one person that could not join us, and her name is Carrie Schwint. And so I have a recording of her reactions to Section 31. So let me share my screen and let's get it started. All right. Takes a second. Audio share. All right. This is a special event for us. I will be doing a live stream on February 5th to discuss Section 31. Unfortunately, Carrie could not make it, so we decided to get together and let her give us her take on the movie Section 31. Some people have already, as most people have already seen, has not gotten a lot of great reviews. So let's hear let me hear your opinion about the movie.
I genuinely enjoyed it. I was along for the ride. The humor was hysterical. I've been a fan of Michelle Yeoh for many years, even before Everything Everywhere All at Once. And yeah, I loved her character on Discovery. I was super pumped when they announced Section 31 because I just wanted more of her character. Giorgio has such an interesting vibe to her, even though she's completely despicable character objectively. She just has something about her that just draws you in, and that's all credit to Michelle and her performance. She is excellent at that style of character. I can't remember the character's name, but her character in what was it? Crazy Rich Asians. That character has a similar vibe to her. But I enjoyed all of the characters. I loved the idea of the tiny little guy inside like the Vulcan robot suit.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the action. I didn't think it was meant to be specifically Irish because it's space, so it's Irish adjacent. So I didn't feel like it was mocking at all. I enjoyed it, and then of course you get the little guy's mannequin wife at the end in the same in the same Vulcan suit with an over the top Southern accent, and I enjoyed the hell out of that too. It made me laugh.
I did laugh. I'm not gonna lie. I did laugh at the end about that, but also I was like, a Southern accent? What? And I live in the South, so I was like, what are they trying to do? It just blew my mind. But no, I agree. This everybody will hear this probably twice, but I felt it was like, as I said during our free for all, it was like Mission Impossible meets Star Trek. And that was exactly what I thought,
With the aesthetic of Guardians of the Galaxy, I thought.
Yeah. See, I didn't pick that up at first until people start saying that. I don't remember who mentioned it, during that. I've heard it a couple of times as well. So, it just.
I had to eventually, when I was looking up reviews and stuff, I had to stop reading the reviews and stop listening to YouTube videos discussing it because it was just that anger towards it was just, it was painful to read. It was painful to look at. It made me sad. It made me so sad. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I want more. I could tell that it was a series that very clearly teeing it up for potential. And the more I thought about it, they could still, in theory, make it a series and just have Michelle Yeoh like pop in from time to time, like Waxana Troy pops in from time to time. Because if I remember, early on there was a screen that had like Alpha Squad, Beta Squad, etc., like that first graphic you see. How does Section 31 be like following one of the other squads, maybe, or have the squad from the movie continue without Michelle, and she just pops in from time to time, and they just throw in a line of dialogue like, "Oh, she's off doing something else," or something like that. There's a way to continue with it, because I understand with Michelle Yeoh being all Oscar winning and all, she's probably very expensive.
Yeah, and that's actually a valid point. I mean, hello, she could just be the voice in the box, like Charlie's
Yeah.
Angels.
Have her be the Jamie Lee Curtis person. I was like, yeah, and all the stuff I had read about that, I was not because you heard the voice at the beginning. I kept thinking, I know that voice. It sounds like Michelle Forbes, but not quite. And then Jamie Lee pops up, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's why that voice sounded familiar.
And
I thought she was hysterical. She recorded that in 2 hours.
I totally did not pick up that was her voice for some reason until she popped up on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, holy hell, Jamie Lee Curtis?
Yeah. Yeah, apparently it was Michelle Yeoh's idea to get Jamie Lee for it. One of the things I did watch on YouTube that I listened to the whole thing was somebody doing a live podcast recording. It was basically a panel of some of the actors from Section 31, including Michelle Yeoh. And they were talking about the whole thing, and Michelle said that it was her idea to get Jamie Lee.
That's what I saw too. The tidbit that I saw was they may have been at the Oscars when she was doing that, or she just literally just asked her, "Hey, do you want to be in a Star Trek movie?" And she was like, "Okay." I mean, it's just so good. Well, I thank you for coming on here to give me your opinion, and not just me, to give the whole world your opinion on Section 31.
Mm-hmm.
And because we do need to have more positive opinions about it than all the negative, because unfortunately, again, kind of like with the 8 JJ movies, if we don't watch this stuff, they're not going to make more.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
So,
like life, not everything is bright and shiny, and there are darker corners of the Star Trek universe. I enjoy seeing all the different shades of it. Not everything is light and chipper. Some things are going to be a bit more serious and darker in tone. I love darker in tone. Is it perfect? No, but I enjoy the hell out of it.
Same here, and I think that's the reason why everybody's I hear a lot, and you have as well. That's why they're saying it's not their Federation, it's not their Starfleet.
Yeah, if I hear it's not Trek one more time, I'm gonna scream. I mean, seriously.
All right. Well, hi, thanks again, and we will. I'll talk to you later, Carrie. You have a good weekend.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. That was Carrie's review. So she, as you can tell, she really liked the movie. She liked it. So, but now I'm going to let the panel here start giving me and all of us their opinion on the movie. And our first off will be Mr. Mark Zukoff.
You asked for it. When this movie was announced, I was interested in it for two elements primarily, Michelle Yeoh and Rachel Garrett. Now, my expectations were fairly low, and my first watch still disappointed me. On the second viewing, I felt marginally better about it, but I still had a fair number of issues. I want Star Trek to move forwards, not backwards. Even if the story is set in a time period we've seen before, it should still be possible to innovate. A good example in Section 31 is the phase pods, which we've never seen before. Some criticisms raised by other channels like Trek Culture struck me more as nostalgia, such as the lack of familiar starships or monster maroon uniforms, that tricorders look like cell phones, or that only Rachel Garrett and Georgiou were previously known characters. I didn't have a problem with any of those things. I give the Star Trek team credit for trying something different. That's needed if the franchise is to survive. But I think many of the problems with the movie are due to it initially being planned as a series, then shoehorned into a movie, which apparently Paramount decreed a specific length that could not be exceeded. When deciding what to keep and what to throw away, I think they made some bad decisions. I think they picked the wrong story or part of the story when they converted the series plan into a 95-minute movie. I wanted more connective tissue between Georgiou leaving Discovery and her arriving in the lost era between TOS and TNG. I wanted to see her attitude continue to change and grow as it seemed to be doing in Discovery Season 3. And dealing with the mirror universe again made it for a less effective introduction to what Section 31 is doing in the Star Trek universe during this particular time period. Now, I try to review the movie we got as opposed to the movie I wanted, but if the movie we got didn't work well, I will have to say so. I think the actors did the best they could with the material they were given, but the direction was not what I hoped for from Olatunde Osunsanmi, and the needless use of CGI and the AR wall took me out of the story periodically when those elements appeared. I'll get into that detail when we go over the detail later. So this movie is the latest example of what I call the Star Warsification of Star Trek. Flashy visuals, much more action than drama, and making up the rules as they go along rather than establishing how their universe works and sticking to it. That approach can work sometimes, but most of the time it winds up frustrating the audience, both in Star Wars and in Star Trek. One wonders how much longer it can go on this way in either franchise.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, it's a tough one. I can't wait till we're done all talking, then we can really just go at it. All right, Kirnjeet, what do you think?
Okay, I have a little bit to say to start off. For me, I was entertained by it. I enjoyed the movie as a whole. I thought it was like I got sucked into the story. But I know, I mean, what Carrie said, I'm sorry, but it just didn't feel like Trek to me. I felt like I had to remind myself that, oh, yeah, this is Star Trek. And I felt like there were moments where there was like some sound effects that were reminiscent of Star Trek that they used that I was like, oh, yeah, I hear that. That's familiar to me. I wish there were more Star Trek connections. I wish that, like, I know we had Georgiou, we had Garrett, but we never, like for Garrett specifically, we didn't get to know her character that much. Like within yesterday's Enterprise, it was very short to get to know her. I really loved her character in this. I thought the actress did a wonderful job. I thought they did really great stuff with her character. I wish that crew, that was like the whole ragtag team, I wish they had included some familiar aliens that we know of that would have tied it more into Star Trek for me. The whole laughing Vulcan kind of threw me off, but I don't know. Is there anyone else here who also thought of the Next Generation episode Disaster when Picard is stuck with those kids? So the first thing that came to mind when I heard Laughing Vulcan was the Laughing Vulcan and his dog, which I love to hear what that song actually sounds like. And yeah, it was just mostly for me. Like the story was great. I do love that, there's more in the Star Trek universe. I'm always open to more. It was a little bit like I felt like, yeah, if it was a series, if they had done 10 episodes or something, I think they could have done a really better job. But yeah, that's my take.
Well, thank you. And so now we're coming back into deep in the heart of Texas with Miss Rachel, who's a host of Text Trek, to let us know what she felt about Section 31.
I I thought the movie was fine and I enjoyed it. There are issues, mostly with the same things that Mark had issues with, where I wish it was longer or that it was able to have still been a TV show. I understand the like real life reasons of why it couldn't have been a show. I don't understand why Paramount would put a limit on a streaming movie. That's confusing. But the way obviously we've all seen the weirdly negative reviews where people think this is the worst thing that's ever come out, and I was like, there's offensive Star Trek out there. That's not what this is. But I also feel like I did get what was advertised to me though. The trailers were like, here's a fun action movie with Michelle Yeoh, and I got a fun action movie with Michelle Yeoh. And even though most of my problems with this movie is that I wanted more of it, I liked all of the characters, and I just wish there were more of it. Like, I wish we could have gotten like Mel and Zeph, especially if it had been a TV show. I probably would have cared a little more when they died because you would have spent some time with them. Or I really liked the joking with the part I've been calling Star Trek Among Us. But if like that had been stretched out for a whole episode, that's like also the kind of, I really like a closed door mystery. But I really enjoyed it. And also I thought the action was great, which is not surprising coming from Michelle Yeoh. And I don't envy the job that was given to the people of trying to turn those scripts into something that was only 90 minutes. But honestly, for the most part, I thought it was fun. And obviously I enjoyed it because I think I've seen it like 3.5 times now. Because I keep showing it to friends and being like, it's actually fine. So, and I will say, my one friend that I've talked about other things that was obsessed with Michelle Yeoh when I showed him Discovery, he did enjoy himself. So I'm just happy I got to make my friend happy.
That's awesome. Thanks, Rachel. All right, here we go. Out to Missouri, Mr. TJ Jackson Bay.
What's up? What's up? Okay, so Section 31. This was an interesting movie, and one of the things that I felt kind of disappointed with, not necessarily with the movie, was that I started seeing reactions about it before I watched it, and I felt like as I began to watch it, that started coloring, what I was thinking and feeling about it. So I had to just set all that stuff aside and just watch the movie right for itself. And for the most part, I enjoyed it. Um, I feel the way a lot of people do in watching it and seeing that, okay, this looked like a series premiere, especially at the end. Like, it's totally set up to keep going, and I want that more, right? But as a standalone movie, and I do hope they add to this story, but as a standalone movie, like I said, it left me wanting more. With the characters that they introduced, I was one disappointed to see Mel go. She was the one that I connected with, uh, and so as they went on, as the fights are going on and the action is going on, I felt like I'm not invested in these characters. Like, I don't care if they die, and that felt like terrible to me. Like, that sounds terrible to say out loud, but that's what I thought. That's what I felt. I was like, I'm not invested in these people yet, but the potential was there. I thought the chemistry between them, was starting to come together. So I enjoyed watching them um, do their thing. I also felt like it didn't really connect me to Section 31 that much as an organization. Um, it's- Section 31, as we know it, is one, mostly humans. So, but I'm not a specious, so I don't mind that there there are other races in there like the Kamaloid and but it's supposed to be like dark and quiet and secrety, and I didn't get that vibe. So not so much that I think it's not Section 31 or it's not Star Trek, but I just didn't see the development on screen. um and again, like I said, it's a series premiere shoehorned into a movie. And so for what it was, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed watching it. I do have to say, I think Emperor Georgiou's family were terrible Terrans. They did not die well. They, as soon as they realized what was going on, they should have been like, "Oh, we're so proud of you." You know, there I could go on and on. There's a lot of tidbits in this movie that I did grab, a few anyway. Um, so as the conversation continues to develop, I'll drop some more of those in there. But those just the one that got me right from the beginning. I'm like, these are terrible Terrans. They're not really good at being terrible.
Thank you, TJ. Oh my gosh. Oh, I can't wait till we all just going at it in a little bit. Oh, thank you. All right, Allison, out in New Mexico. Let me know what you think about this.
So I've watched it a couple of times now, and the second time I liked it more. I did like it the first time. I do feel it was definitely handicapped by, not being a 10 episode series and trying to shoehorn everything into that hour and a half. I mean, 95 minutes is not a long time to tell an espionage story and introduce 4 or 5 characters. I mean, yes, we kind of know one already aside from Georgiou, of course. I mean, with Rachel Garrett, but we've only had 42 minutes, if that, with Rachel Garrett with her as a much more of an adult, not, early in her career. So it is hard to, really start to get into these characters because we're with them for 48 hours, maybe. So yeah, there's not a lot of character development that gets to happen in that amount of time anyway. So that is a little hard because we were just thrown in with a whole new crew. What I really like about it is that it is Mission Impossible-esque, which is also a great nod to Lucille Ball, as that was her other, show that she really helped develop. So I thought that was really cool. It also really reminded me of the A-Team because all of the characters are kooky. And so I'm like, oh, it's the A-Team and Mission Impossible set in the Star Trek universe. I'm like, that's fun. I thought the effects were amazing. I thought the costumes were beautiful. Everything they put on Michelle Yeoh. I'm like, can I have one, please, too? Thank you. And actually, I would take a Locke's costume, too. I mean, nothing about being tall and dark and very statuesque. I mean, I would do that costume any day. So that's fun. And I mean, that's pretty much, how I feel about it. I did enjoy it. Was I wanting more? Yes, definitely wanted more. But because I want more Michelle Yeoh at all times. So give me more Georgiou. Her showing her, right before she became emperor and what she did for that does remind us, and for people who hadn't seen Discovery, that she is a terrible person, but she did it to survive and get to be, the emperor of her known universe. And that's really what the Terran Empire and that whole other universe is about. So it was very on brand. And I do think they're kind of like hinting that just in general, being in our universe, you tend to be nicer. And so when you get a chance to be here for a long time, it will change who you were predominantly. So I think, it was kind of nice showing like, hey, this is where she started and this is where she is now, even though I do feel it also rested a lot on, you needed to have watched Discovery to to know Georgiou's full character arc. And yeah, I felt like we needed a little bit more Section 31 in it. But, when it comes to being a secret organization, yeah, we're not going to see the secret organization. We're in Georgiou's re-recruitment storyline. So we're getting that. And of course, wonderful having Jamie Lee Curtis. I am enjoying this friendship that Michelle Yeoh and Jamie Lee Curtis are experiencing together, seeing women cheering women when Michelle won her Oscar, and that look on Jamie Lee Curtis's face, like I cried. I'm like, yes. So of course, getting Jamie Lee Curtis here because of of that is just fabulous. So I want more. Let's do more. It'll be great.
Thank you, Allison. All right, all the way out to Tokyo with My Live in Tokyo. How are you doing tonight?
This morning, doing well.
Oh, yes. Time zones, it's a thing.
Tomorrow here.
Yeah. So what'd you think?
I looked at it with two sets of eyes. One, the fan eyes, and one, I can't escape. I'm professional eyes. And so I'll use the fan eyes comments later because I think there's a lot of opinion sharing to happen with that. But professionally, I looked at it and I thought, what are they trying to position this movie as? The Star Trek world. How are they trying to position it within the framework that starts with TOS and has Section 31, the movie being the most recent iteration? And I was lost on that question because for such a long time, Star Trek has been the equivalent of a nice thick book sitting on the shelf that when you open and you start to read the words, this video comes up in your mind and you go right into the universe, and it teaches us things, and it makes people like all of us come together because we appreciate each other for who we are and not what package we're in, and we have belief in the future of humanity and so many other things. And Star Trek has moved on from that in many ways. It kept that for a long time, but it's moved on from that. And with Discovery, it became much more of a TikTok video, if you will, about entertainment, about something packaged and well produced, highly produced, compared to the stuff in TOS, which was really junk production, compared to the stuff in Discovery, which is really super professional. It seemed like they were positioning it towards the end of the franchise, and that really doesn't fulfill me as a fan because it doesn't have any message. It's dark, it's full of angst, and yes, as Carrie said, there are aspects of the world in which we enjoy Star Trek where there is that. But if you have that, in past, there's always been an accompanying message or something you thought about, or maybe you watched it and then rewatched it 15 years later and then finally saw the message. I didn't get any of that with this movie. So I wasn't really sure about the positioning. Was it Star Trek? Or was it just a grab at viewership with something that was really well produced and full of exciting action and in a sci-fi frame? I was confused. So I the second time I watched it, I turned it off after a while, and I thought, you know what, I'm still confused. I'm gonna talk to the other people about this and see what's going on. So that's what I've got to start with, and I'll talk about my other fan impressions later.
Thank you, Mai. Well, and I'm just gonna, tell you what I thought about it as well. As others have said, and I clearly when it first started off, I was like, oh my God, that's Mission Impossible. We Star Trek, and it was cool. I also got tones of at one point I got tones of Indiana Jones with the whole, the scene where they're flying through that tunnels. I was like, oh, I thought about that. But also, like we've all said, and I said this before also, it was a series that they squashed into a movie, and they just didn't have enough time they just couldn't get it all in. So that's my thoughts on it. And, I like to hear everybody else's, nitpicks, likes, dislikes, what was it that just, either you loved or just ate at your core. So whoever wants to start off, they can just go.
I'll jump in if nobody wants to jump in ahead of me. But all right.
Here it goes.
Here we go. The detail. Modern Trek continues its disquieting trend of introducing then killing off characters. Worse, it's frequently female characters who get the axe. It started with Captain Georgiou, Landry, Culber on Discovery. Yes, I know Culber got better, but his death was particularly hard. Then it's Daj, Icheb, Maddox, Hugh Borg, Talon, who looks like Laris, Rolaren, no relation, and Admiral Shelby on Picard. Next, Hammer on Strange New Worlds, and now Mel, Zeph, and Fuzz in Section 31. San too, but he's the villain. And there's another tradition or trope of killing off the villain. It's also the Star Trek version of Star Wars The Acolyte because, spoilers, most of the main cast of that show was killed off through those 8 episodes. There's just too much reliance on the mirror universe. I know a lot of people like it, but it was overused on DS9 and again on Discovery. It was effective in Enterprise for a single 2-parter and one fantastic episode in Prodigy, but enough is enough. Now, a highlight was Jeff Russo's score. While his scores for Discovery never impressed me much, this one I liked, with one exception I'll get to. Character names. Alok Sahar, that's a good one. But Zeph, Fuzz, Wisp, even Mel is weak because M-E-L-L-E is pronounced Mel here. No offense to any Mels out there. And Quasi seems like a good alias, but not an actual name. Dada no sounds like something a child yelled at their father.
Daddy, no!
Now, some tropes that I wish modern Star Trek shows would avoid. One last mission. There was no reason to use this argument, as A, Giorgio would not have responded positively to it, and B, since this movie was a setup to future stories featuring some of these characters, there would be subsequent missions. The former lover who turns out to be the villain, enough said. According to the dialogue, these characters had worked together before, yet they didn't seem to trust each other and spent more time arguing than working to accomplish their common goals. Then there's some technical tropes. Large rooms with very few people, indicative of using the AR wall ineffectively. Olatunde Osunsanmi directed 14 episodes of Discovery and 2 short treks, but he helped to establish this trope. And I can almost justify it for Giorgio's club, but not for her office and not for the Bridge of the Garbage Scow. Fight sequences use quick, shaky camera work and are too close to the fighters to see what moves they are performing. When you have a known martial artist like Michelle Yeoh, among others, let them show their stuff. It didn't help that the fight involving the phase pods used a lot of CGI that obscured the movement further. And 21st century speech, whatevs, bad bitch, your mama 4 riffing on Turkana 4, where fun goes to die. And the worst of them, chaos is my friends with benefits. Not only is it a weak line, but it's grammatically incorrect. Now, I give a pass to don't get your prime directives in a bunch, because that's a funny line. I like the original plan sequence. It reminds me of a sequence in one of the Mission Impossible movies where a plan is shown that is not actually executed. The godsend, or God's End, which is more appropriate, is a MacGuffin that reminds me of the remote in the last act of the Pixar film The Incredibles. It's constantly being moved and kicked out of reach of people to prolong the story. There's needless CGI in the Terran Empire's flashback with adult Giorgio and San. Also in the opening prologue, CGI showed Terrans transporting large numbers of people at once. Now, aside from the story issue with that, where are you going to put those on a transporter pad? When you have a short runtime and a limited budget, why spend it on effects that don't affect the story? I'm going to stop there for a moment. I have a few more, but I want to let somebody else talk.
Oh my God, that's good. But yeah, you're right. It's just, the language, like, really? Are they going to talk like that in the early 24th century? What? I don't know. That just drove me up the wall at times. And then the accents.
I will say that in TNG initially, Geordi seemed to be a little bit on 20th century vocal things. Like when he goes in The Naked Now, he goes something in here. And then in Where No One Has Gone Before, he talks about where this sleigh ride began. But they eventually phased that out, and he sounded like everybody else in the 24th century.
Oh my God! Anybody else got some hot takes to say? PJ, you look like you got, or Allison, you like you
I
want to
don't
say.
know if it's a hot take, but as much as I love action sequences, I do feel like the action sequences took up too much proportion of our 95 minutes. You know, I do. I love watching Michelle Yeoh, but I'm like, there's more story than that we could be telling than just these action sequences, which were super cool. But I would have preferred a little bit more story happening over fighting over the gods, and you know, we could have had more dialogue, more
So,
almost anything. Then I did feel like half of it was action.
it's like
I would have
agree.
taken more ship battle than hand-to-hand combat, because I mean those ships were cool, and that was a cool idea of like dragging, because the garbage scow could only drag things. I'm like, that's cool. I would have taken more of that hand fighting. So don't know if it's a hot take, but it is a
Yeah.
I definitely agree, because I understand where the impulse would be to be like, we have Michelle Yeoh, let's have these extended action sequences. But the problem is, you have Michelle Yeoh, but you don't have an extended runtime, and it's especially odd, the runtime, in that 90 minutes is pretty short for a movie now. Like,
Yes.
speaking, because I was just literally watched it last night, and also stars Michelle Yeoh. Wicked is 3 hours and half of a play. Like, I don't see why it wouldn't have been longer. It's just really odd to me. I'd be really interested, because I don't think anyone knows what the actual budget is. If maybe the budget was part of the issue and they just didn't have enough money to film much more.
I don't know.
That's my suspicion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I did, because I think Allison mentioned this, I did really like the costumes. I thought everyone looked really cool, especially at the club. I liked both of Rachel Garrett's club clothes. I wish we'd gotten a better look at that red dress at the end. And I think I mentioned this before, the movie was almost annoyingly well cast in that I wanted more time with every character. And I was like, oh, I want to keep hanging out with them, but the movie's done. Can we just chill with the fun characters? Like, obviously, the only Rachel in Star Trek, I have an affinity for Rachel Garrett. But I would love to see more of her. I like Sam Richardson anyways. I really liked Quasi, and I was like, I want more of this, and or more. It was clear they were making Quasi's really upset when Mel dies, but they don't have time to dwell on it at all. And I was like, oh, he said his friend died. Let's go. Oh, we have to move on. So my main problem with all of it is I want more.
I do want to mention something about these statements about the action sequences taking up so much runtime. I agree with you, but it's really indicative of a larger problem, which is action adventure versus drama. Star Trek has always been sold as an action adventure series and not a dramatic series. It's managed to put drama in. And in fact, the original series was probably the best place where the drama was put in. But it's been sold as action adventure, and particularly since Star Trek 2009, it's been action adventure very heavily. And I don't know if they continue that, whether that's going to satisfy people, because I think people do want to see more dramatic aspects to Star Trek.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that, the original series, TNG to some extent, but certainly DS9, were more dramatic than action, for sure. They were trying to get messages across. They were trying to get you involved. The way DS9 looked at relationships in a very simple setting most of the time. The way that messages have always been thinkers. I think that was really an important part of it. And then Section 31 is introduced in DS9. It goes on. It comes back in Enterprise. And for people of a certain age, raising my hand, when I saw the title of this movie, I thought, all right, I want to find out about Section 31. I want to see why, how. It's part of Starfleet. But this movie starts out with the Terran Empire. I mean, the Mirror Universe is entertaining as a bit of a bowl of popcorn while you're waiting for the coffee to brew, but it's never been part of Star Trek per se until Discovery. Which, I mean, look, Discovery is not my favorite series, but I think that if we look at Star Trek in its entirety, I think that Section 31 it clearly has a big role in fans of DS9's minds and in Enterprise fans' minds. And that wasn't addressed at all, I thought. I thought that was a bit weird that they left that there. And then they put in a Malaysian woman with a Greek name. I thought, what the hell is that? That's so bizarre. Now, I know that that's part of Discovery's canon, but it's not in line with what we see in the world today. And it's not in line with us accepting and learning about other cultures. This seems to me to be just a really bizarre choice as well. So from the outset, the movie put me off, and it was playing from behind the 8 ball the entire way with me. So I think that the lack of the Section 31, the marketing of it as a Section 31 movie, and then not doing a darn thing with it as Section 31. Well, maybe they go back and they do a prequel to this movie, and that might be fun to watch. But I wasn't so.
Yeah. Well, and that you said something just now. You just said made me think about it. Yeah, you're right. Section 31. You would have thought you were going to get to see, how Sloan, not Sloan per se, but still how we get to Sloan and other people of Section 31. I hadn't really thought about it until just now. What you're saying, it's true. It's like they didn't give us Section 31. They give us a little nugget, if even that, really, in my opinion. Yeah. Now that you say that, it's No,
it's like they put a stamp of Star Trek on the title, but they forgot to put it in the movie. And
Actually, I must mention here, the title card only says Section 31. It doesn't say Star Trek Section 31. So I think in a way they were distancing it like they did with Enterprise when it premiered back in the day. Wasn't a good decision then, isn't a good decision now.
True. All right, TJ, you got to have something to say.
Yeah, I think it's, interesting, talking about the connection to Section 31, that we didn't get a connection forward or backwards. So, and, this, again, comes from the standpoint of, looking at the movie that we got versus the movie that I wanted. And, one of the things that I wanted was those connections, one way or the other. Like, I want to know, okay, so Georgiou's here. How did she get here? Like, we know where she left in Discovery, and we know the connections that she had to Section 31, back in the early Discovery. But I didn't see connections to either one of those. So there's no, reference to Ash Tyler or Discovery or any of the characters, which is fine. But there's also, nothing that tells me, again, I think someone mentioned what Section 31 is doing in this time period that's called like the Lost Era, I think, between TOS and TNG. And there's nothing that tells me, what Section 31 is going to become that we already know. And there's control. Like, I'm like, okay, didn't we blow this thing up? Like what is, why is there a control? Why is there still called control? I would think even the name, that was such a catastrophe. Like, name it something else. Or tell me why you still call it control.
Well, because you're right. I thought control was destroyed at like the end of season 2 of Discovery.
Obviously, I think that's just what they call, whatever is giving the orders at Section 31.
I think I assumed it was a title like M in James Bond kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, Jamie Lee Curtis. Oh, I screamed. That was awesome.
Someone mentioned not recognizing her voice in the opening. And what my brain kind of did, except my brain went, I've heard this this voice in a commercial. I just didn't put together with the Activia commercial.
Nice.
So the person I was watching it said that sequence was like, it reminds me of Escape from New York. And then at the end, it was like, oh, that's why.
I got a very specific nitpick, though, one of the early action sequences when they're fighting over the godsend in the beginning, and she goes through the wall and her foot gets stuck, and the other guy just walks right over and picks it up and leaves. But as soon as he leaves, she gets up and it's fine. Like, okay, you just spent like a whole like sequence trying to get your foot out of the wall, and then just poof, it's fine. Just
I
gotta.
think because I've watched it a couple of times. The last time I watched it, I was like, "What does happen?" She's like panic pressing the button, so I think she's able to actually figure out what's wrong with it after she's not like panicking trying to get it. Is what I think they're at least trying to show.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, first off, I was like, why do they have face cloaks, basically? I mean, that was the Romulans in TNG. Yeah,
I
some
kind
of
of
the...
assume she brought that with her, like from the mirror universe.
She said somebody gave it to her as a gift.
Yeah, I don't know.
She just said a client, and I don't trust her to tell the truth.
I do have to say, if they have that kind of transporter capability to bring whole troops down at once, then they should be invading all over the place.
Well, they are that in their universe.
That was a huge failure of Discovery as well. They had this incredible transportation technology, and it never appeared anywhere else in the Star Trek series. So, it's anything based on Discovery is going to have a lot of holes in it, I think, because it didn't really sync or link with anything.
Mm-hmm.
This movie's exactly that in many ways. It was a Discovery movie, I think. They could have put Discovery at the top and sold it a heck of a lot better.
And that prologue takes place about 20 years or so before the events of the movie. I'm guessing it's 20. It might be 30 or even more, but I'm guessing it was 20 or 30. So they had that technology long before Discovery comes up. And we know what Discovery's technology is. So.
Yeah, that's in another universe still.
Also true. So things can evolve at a different rate.
Speaking of mirror universe and the terrible Terran, so like, how does this work? So I enjoyed the mirror universe in DS9, and obviously the original series. I enjoyed that episode a lot. It was new and fresh then, but as a concept, like, how does it work? Okay, there's all of this killing. She kills her whole family.
Oh my God. I couldn't believe it opened like that.
These other people, all of this killing.
Fair. She did say she killed her mother on Discovery.
Yeah. Yeah. In every iteration of the mirror universe, everybody's just always getting killed. And yet somehow we can always find like mirrors of the characters that we know. Like, how are these people alive? Everybody dies all the time.
Hey, I will say Deep Space Nine specifically says there's no Jake because these two people didn't stay together long enough.
Yeah.
No, oh my God.
No, there's no version of Jake in those episodes.
So do you want a few more?
I wonder if the real reason they're like, maybe we should make an evil version of this child.
Ooh. I mean, can you imagine an evil Jake? That just doesn't sound right.
Weird.
It'd be hard.
Sirach would have fun.
I think
So much fun.
I would like this. Me would like to see an adult Sirach do that, but I think that would have been
Or
odd.
Sirach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
That would be Sirach in a hard place.
Although I don't think the mirror universe stuff at the beginning bothered me, just because I was like, I figured there'd be something because the movie started Giorgio, and I kind of figured they would have to be like, hey, for people who didn't watch Discovery, this is who this character is, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know the weird Hunger Games thing actually made sense to me. I was like, yeah, the Terran Empire would do something like that. They would do this. They would kidnap children and force them to fight to like be an emperor.
Mm-hmm.
I just assumed those children were kidnapped. It seemed like they were.
Yeah, I just
Maybe it was a lottery. If they're ripping off the Hunger Games, they might as well go all the way.
True. Although I would say, I mean, that's like, there's a long history, especially in like Asian stories, of like like battle royale style,
Battle
including the movie
Royale,
Battle
Mhm.
Royale.
Squid Game, etc.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Although I haven't watched Squid Game, so
I haven't either.
Oh,
I've
Kirnjeet,
seen
do you
some.
got anything to
It's very
say?
violent.
Okay.
well,
We-
you want a few more points?
I was gonna see if Kirnjeet's got any
Oh, okay.
good or bad on this movie.
Apologies for earlier if it was distracting. That's the
Oh.
problem with lives when my daughter just kind of ran in.
Hey, it's all good.
We like orders.
She's
That
okay
didn't
now.
sound right.
She's bad.
That did not sound right.
Oh no! Oh no! A cute child.
Yeah, really.
As long as the volume wasn't on because she was screaming, but it's all
Nope,
good.
we didn't hear it.
We didn't hear that at all.
Yeah, just thinking about everyone's points. I know that, like, when Next Gen came out and everyone was kind of against it, like, oh my gosh, this is not Star Trek. And then DS9 came out and everyone's, this is not Star Trek. It's too dark. And so, I mean, when I saw this, like, I did enjoy it, and to me, it just didn't feel like Star Trek. Because I wanted more. I guess I wanted for the nostalgia, right? Like I wanted to see more of the aliens that we know or stuff like that. But I kind of liked the ending, kind of setting it up for more. So I'm looking forward to see what they might do with the next one and see where they go. It is a shame that this wasn't longer, that it wasn't like a whole series, because as everyone said, like there's so many amazing things they could have done, they could have expanded on. And I did, yeah, like when Mel died, it was kind of like, oh, okay. And you see them kind of like their faces fall, like, oh, but then they don't get to explore that. They don't get to say, we don't hear her history. Like we see her as part of the group, but then that's all we get. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to what else comes along and what they can do with these characters, and hopefully it gets better. I'm sure they're hearing all of our feedback, what's online. I've avoided a lot of it. I didn't want to, especially I knew I was going to be sitting in. I really wanted to give my true opinion, and I didn't want it to be colored by anything. Like TJ, it's hard. Like when you're online and you see everyone talking about it, and a lot of people aren't saying the greatest things about it. Want to be able to watch it coming from where you're coming from and kind of see how do I feel about it without hearing too much. So that's why I'm glad I avoided all those YouTube channels, and I still haven't watched them. Maybe eventually I will. Yeah.
Well, and that was my thing. I remember when the trailer, I don't know about anybody else, when they dropped the last trailer for it, I saw that and I thought, oh, this looks horrible. Like, I really did. I was like, this is gonna suck. And I did. I was like, I don't want to watch this, but
you were right.
What? Well, it didn't suck. It just was different,
I never go by the trailer ever.
Well, I know, but it just looked bad. Anyway, I just was like, okay, but again, I knew I had to. Part of the thing was I knew I had to do a review with Rachel the next evening when it dropped. So I was talking to somebody, a friend of mine, and at midnight I was like, I wonder if it's out there. And it was. So I freaking watched the first hour of it, and then finally said, I have to go to bed. It was Thursday night. I got to go to work in a couple, 4 hours. And so I just stopped watching it, and I was like, it wasn't that bad. And then I finished it up, later on that afternoon and before we started, and it's still, I mean, like Carrie said also, it's Star Trek just with very little letters. Because I think there is one poster, and I think somebody made a comment on one of other channels that it's Section 31, Little Star Trek. I mean, we've said that here tonight as well. Yeah. Was it Sirach who said that? Okay, yeah. And you're right. It just drives me at the wall is the way they did set it up for they could have another movie, but I just with the reviews that it's getting, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know the metrics by any means, but if we don't watch it, we're not going to get anything else better. Oh, hopefully better. It's got to get better, And so that's my only concern, is if they're seeing, Skydance and all they're seeing all the Chuck Star Trek and Moss Sprint, if they see that, they might be like, well, okay, they don't like it, we're not going to do it. But then again, that's also maybe a little bit of their fault because they're not, a lot of people gave Terry a lot of grief for the way he did Picard season 3, but that's what needed to be done. You've got to give the fan service, and I loved season 3 of Picard personally. So, you've got to do that, or you keep on doing this, like they did with this effects of Discovery and this movie. They are starting to rely a little bit too much probably on like the AR wall, but they just love that it's a new toy,
Yeah.
Yeah, but they need to use it effectively. And I don't think they're doing it. There are other groups that are using AR walls, and they're doing a much better job with it, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another danger. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say there's another danger. If we all watch it, it may send the message, oh, this is okay, even though there's all the haters out there as well. But if the ratings are high, they may wind up doing more of this rather than improving on it. But
That's a valid point.
It's hard to say. I can't boycott this stuff. I've watched all of Trek, and I'm going to continue to watch all of Trek. But it's hard sometimes.
And I think one of the things that I do appreciate about the franchise is I do think that they receive feedback. I think they listen to what people are saying. Obviously not the quote unquote super haters or gatekeepers, because they're just never going to be happy. But for the actual fans that are engaged with the franchise, I think they listen, and I think they do try to give us something that's new and fresh. I think that's what they try to do here, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate it, as that. And so I hope they continue to do at least that. In that they listen to the feedback and they try again, try something else, and I think they'll continue to. I think the franchise is alive and well, and will continue to feed us Star Trek because we can't get enough. I can't anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the great thing about the universe of Star Trek is it's so big. There's so much more to explore. It doesn't even matter what time period we're in. Legacy, or continuing forward from Discovery. Like there's so much of this universe that we can explore, and we all just want more. So bring on more.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, look, it to me, it's about positioning. It's ultimately positioning. Look at how well received by so many people the animated efforts were with Lower Decks and Prodigy. It's just like boom, everybody's like straight into it. And then it looks like somebody hit Control-Shift-I in their Photoshop thing instead of just Control-I to get the size of the image. It's the colors. I mean, raspberry, and Michelle Yeoh, as good of an actress as she is, to anybody that grew up with DS9 or Enterprise, who the heck is Michelle Yeoh vis-a-vis Section 31? Because Discovery was maybe off the radar of a lot of people. I certainly didn't watch much of it. And I don't know why here's this icon taking up half of the screen on this poster. So tell me more. It's like the keyhole diagram for an essay where they jump straight in here and they forgot the intro bit, because I was lost from second number one.
I almost wonder if that beginning part with Jamie Lee Curtis was like added later to be like, oh, we didn't explain enough. Because I jokingly said to the person I watched it, I said, oh, this wasn't meant for us, as in two people who watched Discovery, where they're like, here's the backstory of this character real quick. I was glad I was able to watch this before reviews came out, because it was like I was able to have like my actual opinion and not be colored by it. But I do have, as we're like looking, I'm very confused by the poster of this movie, because none of this movie was bright purple, but you can search for rants about me, about the marketing of Star Trek. I have a lot more favorable opinions about the actual shows as opposed to how they're marketed / merchandised. Why did I have to make that Murph back there? Why isn't it easy to find like Murph things, for instance?
Or Moopsies.
Or
Yeah, wait, oopsie.
she's got a moopsie.
Yeah,
I love Moopsie.
I was like, I think my
I like my
messed, and
bones,
just
so I don't
leave
have
it
one,
there.
but I like Moopsie.
My. Oh my God. Oh, no. Well, I don't know. Mark did make a point. You know, it could be a double-edged sword. We watch it too much. They think we like it, but at the same time, we have to do something. We've got to watch it and support it because yes, I do want legacy. I want I want to see Captain Seven and Rafi and all of them. So we got to take this and then
They're gonna have 7 captains.
We need to have a separate discussion on that. That would take up a half hour by itself.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, we've been doing this for my first live stream. We did it for an hour and we survived. I appreciate that. And so I thank all of y'all for coming in tonight and let's just talking about the movie that everybody loves to hate. And I thank y'all again, and we will do this again for the next one. Y'all have a good, lovely evening. Bye, everybody.